I, a 27-year-old woman, recently gave birth to the most adorable baby boy, my husband Mark, who is 29 years old, and I had been over the moon ever since we found out I was pregnant. As first-time parents, we were naturally a bit terrified. I must mention that my mother-in-law, whom I'll refer to as Brenda, had always been overbearing, but her meddling reached new heights after the baby arrived. Imagine my shock when Brenda announced that she had hired a full-time nanny for us. Initially, I felt relieved, thinking she might be trying to help. However, my relief quickly turned to confusion when I met the nanny, whom we'll call Stacy. Stacy was exceptionally young, perhaps around 22, and she had a penchant for meticulously tending to her appearance, even at the early hour of 7 a.m. Something about her made me uneasy, but I couldn't quite put my finger on it. As a few weeks went by, I couldn't help but notice that Stacy was exceptionally touchy with my husband. She often touched his arm while talking, laughed a bit too hard at his jokes, and it was clear that Mark was growing uncomfortable with her behavior. What made matters worse was that Brenda would frequently visit to see the baby, but ended up spending most of her time chatting with Stacy. One evening, I overheard Brenda and Stacy having a conversation in the kitchen. I couldn't make out the entire conversation, but I caught phrases like, "He'll come around," and "just be patient." My stomach churned, and I felt the need to figure out what was truly going on. A few days later, Mark was working from home, and I was supposed to take the baby to the doctor, but had forgotten something upstairs. When I went back up, I froze. There was Stacy, attempting to kiss Mark in our bedroom, and Mark was pushing her away, looking horrified. I couldn't contain my emotions any longer. I screamed at her to get out while Mark stammered, trying to explain that he had no idea what was happening. Fuming, I called Brenda and demanded to know what was going on. Smugly, she told me that she had known Stacy for years and believed that Mark deserved someone more polished than me. She had hired Stacy with the intention of trying to seduce him away from our marriage. I was left speechless. I informed Brenda that she was no longer welcome in our home, fired Stacy on the spot, and warned her that if she ever came near our family again, I would involve the authorities. Mark was overwhelmed with guilt and swore that he had no prior knowledge of this scheme. I wanted to believe him, but I was deeply hurt and blindsided by the entire ordeal. We knew that we needed to have a serious conversation, but we were at a loss about where to begin. First and foremost, I want to express my heartfelt gratitude for the immense support and advice you all have provided. It's been quite a roller coaster since my last update, and I felt it was important to keep you informed about our progress. After taking some time to cool off and carefully reflect on the situation, Mark was sincerely apologetic and agreed that we needed to seek couples counseling to navigate through these troubled waters. We were fortunate to find a skilled therapist who has been instrumental in helping us communicate effectively and rebuild the trust that had been damaged. Mark has been commendably transparent, granting me access to his phone and making a concerted effort to communicate openly about his feelings. As for Brenda, the fact remained that she is the grandmother of our son, but I wasn't emotionally prepared to face her just yet. Mark concurred that it was best to keep her at a distance for the time being. We collaborated on drafting an email to her, explaining the hurtfulness of her actions and their impact on our family. We made it clear that until she could respect our marriage and boundaries, she would not be welcome in our lives. Surprisingly, about a week after sending the email, we received a handwritten letter from Brenda. She profusely apologized for her actions and mentioned that she was actively seeking therapy to address her controlling behavior. She accepted the consequences of her actions, including the possibility of not being a part of her grandson's life. This unexpected turn of events left us genuinely surprised. Our therapist advised that if we were contemplating the idea of reintegrating Brenda into our lives, we should proceed cautiously and arrange a mediated meeting with her. We agreed to meet her at our therapist's office. Brenda appeared genuinely remorseful during this meeting and openly explained that her overprotectiveness of Mark stemmed from his father leaving them when he was young. She admitted to seeing parts of herself in Stacy and mistakenly believed that if Mark married someone like her, it would strengthen their marriage. She now recognized the flaws in her logic, Following the therapist's guidance, we decided on a gradual reintroduction with clearly defined boundaries. We would allow Brenda supervised visits with our son, provided that she continued with therapy and respected our marriage. In addressing the nanny situation, we acknowledged our need for assistance but wanted to ensure we were making the right choice for the right reasons. After careful consideration, we found a wonderful older lady through a reputable agency. She brings years of experience as a nanny, and her primary focus is genuinely on helping us care for our son. We understand that the road ahead is a day-by-day process, but Mark and I are committed to rebuilding and focusing on our family. I'm striving to release my anger towards Brenda while maintaining a cautious distance. Some of you might consider me too forgiving, but I believe that everyone deserves a chance to change if they genuinely show remorse and take steps to do so. Nevertheless, I remain vigilant and won't hesitate to sever ties if Brenda oversteps her boundaries again. So, this is where we stand at the moment. I'm still processing everything, but your support has been incredibly meaningful. Since my last update, significant developments have occurred, and I feel the need to share it all. Things seem to be on an upward trajectory. Brenda was actively participating in therapy, putting in genuine effort to change. Mark and I were in the process of rebuilding our trust, and our new nanny was working out wonderfully. However, one day, Mark received a message on social media from none other than Stacy, the former nanny. She insisted on an urgent meeting with both of us. We were hesitant, but something in her message piqued our curiosity. We agreed to meet her in a public place, with a friend accompanying us for moral support. Stacy appeared worn out, as if she hadn't slept in days. Tearfully, she confessed that Brenda had manipulated her. She revealed that Brenda had convinced her that Mark was in an unhappy marriage and needed someone better. Stacy genuinely believed she was helping him by attempting to get closer. But after being fired, she had a change of heart and wanted to make amends. We were both in a state of shock. Stacy showed us messages from Brenda that confirmed her story. When we returned home, it felt as though the ground had been pulled out from beneath us yet again. Brenda had been deceiving us all along. I was consumed by anger, and we decided to confront her. We arranged to meet Brenda at our house, where I presented all the evidence we had against her. Initially, she tried to deny it, but eventually, she relented and admitted to manipulating Stacy. She claimed that she had changed since then, which I found incredibly audacious. I informed Brenda that she was no longer welcome in our lives or in her grandson's life. I asked her to leave and never contact us again. Mark was heartbroken, feeling as if he had lost his mother. I couldn't help but feel sorry for Mark, but I knew that protecting our family was my foremost priority. Consequently, we decided to seek legal counsel regarding Brenda. Our attorney recommended a restraining order due to her manipulative behavior, and we pursued it successfully. In the midst of all this chaos, Mark and I grew closer, recognizing the necessity of unity to safeguard our family's well-being. We began attending a family support group designed for individuals grappling with manipulative family members, and it proved to be a valuable source of guidance. Our primary focus is now on cultivating a safe and loving environment for our son, free from negativity and manipulation. As for Stacy, while we didn't envision a friendship with her, we appreciated her coming forward. We suggested that she seek counseling to understand how she had allowed herself to be manipulated. I'm proud of the progress we've made, but it's disheartening that we had to go through such a challenging journey. My family remains my top priority, and I'll always protect them. Now, it's been almost a year since my last update, and I never thought I'd post again. However, something remarkable happened, and I feel compelled to share it with you. After Brenda was out of our lives, Mark and I shifted our focus towards rebuilding and strengthening our family. Our son is growing rapidly and continues to be the light of our lives. Our new nanny has become an integral part of our family. One evening, Mark and I received an invitation to a family therapy session from Brenda, conveyed through her therapist. Naturally, we were initially skeptical, but after discussing it with our counselor, we decided to attend, just to see if there was any genuine change. In the session, Brenda was almost unrecognizable. She had lost weight, her voice was softer, and she appeared humbled. Her therapist began by noting Brenda's significant progress, and Brenda herself spoke, explaining that she had been participating in individual and group therapy, as well as joining a support group for grandparents. She expressed understanding if we never wanted her in our lives, but felt the need to apologize and convey her gratitude. She thanked us for revealing the depth of her manipulation and control, and acknowledged that therapy had opened her eyes to the fact that she had been trying to live vicariously through Mark due to her regrets. She had never truly allowed him to live his own life. Brenda offered a heartfelt apology to me for all the pain she had caused, saying she was genuinely sorry. I found myself in tears. I had never expected to hear those words, but it was Mark's response that took me by surprise the most. He thanked Brenda for her apology, told her he loved her, but also emphasized the need to protect his family. He suggested that maybe in the future they could have some form of a relationship, but it would never be what it once was. We left the session feeling emotionally drained yet somewhat lighter. Fast forward a few months, and our son began asking questions about his grandma. After some contemplation, we decided to allow Brenda to send letters to him, and this has been the extent of their relationship. I still maintain some reservations, but I don't want my son to grow up without knowing his grandmother, especially if she has genuinely changed. Mark and I are also actively working with other couples and families who have faced similar issues. We want to help others learn from our experiences. Last but not least, Mark and I renewed our vows, considering it a new beginning for us, and we celebrated with a small ceremony surrounded by close friends and family. So, here we are, a journey filled with ups and downs. I've learned a great deal about myself, my family, and the kind of person I aspire to be. I'm genuinely delighted with the progress we've made as a family, and it's remarkable to witness the changes in Brenda. However, I remain cautious. Your unwavering support and encouragement have been a tremendous source of strength. Thank you. First and foremost, let me emphasize how much I love my husband, Mike, who is 29 years old. We've been together for 5 years, and while our families are quite different, with mine being very chill and supportive, Mike's family, particularly his mom, adheres to a more traditional mindset. Since Mike and I got engaged, my mother-in-law has been a constant source of stress for me. She criticizes everything from my clothing choices to my career as a graphic designer, and essentially everything about me. At first, I tried to take it in stride, assuming she was just being protective of her only son. Fast forward to the wedding planning phase. I had always envisioned a simple wedding, and Mike was on board with that idea. However, my mother-in-law had grand plans for a lavish ceremony and took over the planning, even selecting my wedding dress. I spoke to Mike about it, and he suggested we go with the flow because she had been dreaming of this day for a long time. Though I wasn't thrilled, I reluctantly agreed for the sake of peace. On our wedding day, my anxiety was soaring. My mother-in-law was taking charge and bossing everyone around, determined to make everything perfect for her dream day. During the preparations, she came over to me and made a hurtful comment, suggesting that Mike could have married someone more traditional. My heart sank, and it was the breaking point. I took a deep breath and, with calmness, addressed my mother-in-law. I expressed that I understood she might not have envisioned me as the traditional bride she expected for Mike, but I genuinely loved him, and he loved me. I emphasized that this was our day, and I wished for us to begin our new life together with positivity and support from our families. I assured her that I would be her family from that point forward, and wished she could see the value in embracing our differences instead of belittling them. At this point, my mother-in-law's eyes welled up with tears. She began sobbing and left the room, followed by a few family members. I was in shock as I hadn't anticipated that my words would lead to such a reaction. The room was filled with tension, and Mike came over, saying he was proud of me for standing up for myself, but wished things hadn't become so dramatic on our wedding day. We proceeded with the ceremony, but I couldn't help but feel the disapproving glares from some of Mike's family members. Mother-in-law kept her distance, and it was apparent that she had been crying. The mix of emotions left me feeling conflicted. After the wedding, My mother-in-law gave me the silent treatment, and the tension between our families remained palpable. Mike was supportive, but I could tell he was torn, as he missed having a normal relationship with his mom. Some family members from my side even reached out to him, suggesting that I had been too harsh. On the other hand, my family was entirely supportive, expressing their relief that someone had finally addressed the issue with mother-in-law. A month into our marriage, I received an unexpected call from my mother-in-law, sounding highly emotional. She expressed her desire to meet me alone, and although I was hesitant, I agreed to meet her at a coffee shop. Upon my arrival, I found her already at the coffee shop, and I mentally prepared myself for what I believed would be a barrage of complaints. However, instead of confronting me with criticism, she broke down in tears. Amid her sobs, she began sharing her own experiences from her loveless marriage, emphasizing how she had felt deprived of the ability to make her own choices. She revealed that her excessive involvement in Mike's life stemmed from her desire to prevent him from making the same mistakes she had made. In a twisted way, her controlling nature was her expression of love. As I listened to her, my heart softened, and I realized I had never known this vulnerable side of her. In response, I spoke about how her words and actions had caused me pain, and I expressed my genuine desire to be accepted as a part of the family. I also stressed the importance of Mike and me making choices together as a couple, even if they sometimes differed from her vision. Tears welled up in both our eyes, and we came to a mutual understanding that we needed to work on our relationship, not only for Mike's sake, but also for the sake of family harmony. We agreed to engage in family therapy sessions involving Mike, her, and me. Fast forward to our first therapy session, it proved to be an eye-opening experience. Our therapist guided us in understanding the significance of communication and how we both carried emotional baggage that needed addressing. Mother-in-law began making genuine efforts to improve. She initiated weekly calls with me for casual conversations, and though it still felt somewhat awkward, it was a far cry from our previous interactions. I could sense her earnest attempt at change. Mike played an essential role throughout this process. He attended the therapy sessions with unwavering support and was thrilled to witness his mom and me working towards mending our relationship. Looking back, I wished the wedding date drama had never occurred, but in a way, it acted as a catalyst for change. If I hadn't spoken up, we might have continued the same toxic cycle. I maintain a cautious sense of optimism for the future. There's much work ahead, but I believe that we have taken the initial steps in the right direction. After participating in several family therapy sessions with my mother-in-law, it seemed that things were on the upswing. She appeared to be more understanding, and we began to cultivate a relationship that bore some resemblance to a typical mother-in-law and daughter-in-law connection. However, about 2 months ago, Mike and I discovered that we were expecting our first child. We were ecstatic and couldn't wait to share the news with our families. Consequently, we organized a small dinner at our home to make the announcement. As the evening progressed and both of our families arrived, we enjoyed a pleasant dinner together. However, when we finally broke the news about the pregnancy, mother-in-law's reaction was far from what we had expected. Upon hearing the news, my mother-in-law immediately burst into tears, and her enthusiasm was palpable as she began talking about all the things she wanted to do for her grandchild. Initially, her intentions seemed sweet, but gradually, it morphed into her making plans without considering our feelings or opinions. I endeavored to maintain my composure and tactfully suggested that we should all discuss and make decisions together as a family. Regrettably, my mother-in-law did not take kindly to this approach and accused me of trying to keep her grandchild away from her. This time, Mike intervened and calmly told his mother that this was a joyful moment for us, and we should be celebrating together. He also emphasized that she needed to respect our boundaries as parents. This, however, only made my mother-in-law even more emotional, and she stormed out of the house. Consequently, the rest of the night was somewhat ruined, and it became apparent that we were back to square one. Despite the setbacks, we continued with our therapy sessions, and our therapist suggested that perhaps mother-in-law needed individual counseling to address her underlying issues. Mike and I were both supportive of this idea and encouraged her to consider it. The turning point came when, after a particularly emotional therapy session, my mother-in-law agreed to start individual counseling. She began attending these sessions, and we noticed a transformation in her demeanor. She became calmer and more receptive to our perspectives. During a joint session, she tearfully apologized for her behavior on the night of our pregnancy announcement and acknowledged that she still had a long way to go in comprehending and respecting boundaries. At present, we are cautiously navigating our relationship with my mother-in-law. There have been both ups and downs, but the fact that she's open to counseling and is showing signs of self-reflection is a promising development. In the meantime, Mike and I have been diligently working on establishing clear boundaries and communicating our expectations for involvement in our child's life. We understand the importance of our child having a relationship with her grandmother, but it has to be a healthy one. In addition, we are focusing on building and nurturing our little family. The pregnancy has brought us immense joy, and we are eagerly preparing for the arrival of our precious baby. I'd like to express my sincere gratitude to all of you for your invaluable advice and kind words. It's been a roller coaster, but knowing that I have your support has made a significant difference. Following my last update, my mother-in-law continued with her therapy, and we began to notice gradual signs of improvement. She started communicating more openly, and we cautiously started involving her in planning for the baby. It felt as though a weight was gradually being lifted off our shoulders. Although we didn't entirely let our guards down, it was a relief not to constantly feel like we were walking on eggshells. Fast forward to the day of the delivery. Mike and I had a well-established birth plan, which we had communicated to both our families. According to our plan, only Mike was to be in the delivery room, and family members were to wait until we were ready for visitors. However, just as I was being wheeled into the delivery room, guess who unexpectedly appeared? My mother-in-law. She insisted that she should be in the room to witness the birth of her grandchild. The nurses, aware of our birth plan, prevented her from entering, and this resulted in a scene. Eventually, she had to be escorted out of the hospital. Following the birth of our beautiful baby girl, we were dismayed to learn about my mother-in-law's actions. However, we chose not to let it dampen our spirits and instead focused on our daughter and the joy she brought into our lives. When we returned home, my mother-in-law approached me to apologize. She appeared cheerful and genuinely regretful, but this time, something within me had changed. I had this precious little being to protect, and I couldn't continue allowing my mother-in-law's behavior to slide. I gazed at her calmly and stated, "I appreciate the apology, but you need to understand that our daughter's well-being is our priority. If you can't respect our boundaries, you will not be a part of her life." Silence filled the room, and it was evident that my words had hit home. We didn't see my mother-in-law for about a month. During this time, she continued her therapy and even joined a support group for grandparents, making a genuine effort to change. When she finally reached out, she was a transformed person. She thanked us for being firm with her and making her realize how her behavior had been affecting everyone around her. Now, several months have passed since that pivotal conversation. My mother-in-law has been amazing, respecting our boundaries, being supportive, and relishing in the time she spends with her granddaughter. We've made efforts to build bridges, recognizing the importance of family, and wanting our daughter to have a loving and supportive extended family. Reflecting on the journey, it's clear that it was a bumpy road to reach this point. There were moments when I questioned if the relationship with my mother-in-law was salvageable. However, through open communication, therapy, and setting clear boundaries, we've arrived at a place characterized by mutual respect and love. I'd like to conclude by expressing my gratitude to this community. Your advice, perspectives, and encouragement have been invaluable during this journey. We still have a long way to go, but I'm hopeful for the future. To anyone going through something similar, don't be afraid to set boundaries and seek professional help if necessary. Sometimes it takes a wake-up call for people to change. Congratulations on the birth of your daughter. It's incredible how the arrival of a child can put things into perspective. Your journey has been a roller coaster, and it's quite inspiring how both parties were able to grow through this. The key takeaways are the importance of setting boundaries and effective communication. It's not about who was right or wrong at a particular moment. It's about how everyone involved took steps to make things better for the sake of the new family member. This is a great lesson for many people who might be struggling with difficult in-laws.